Hello, what if I say Taiwan is China? Yes, you heard me right. They didn't say it's a part of China, nor did it say it's an independent state either. Clearly, Taiwan's official name is the Republic of China, and mainland China, as we all know, is called the People's Republic of China. So the question here is, why is Taiwan separated from China, and what makes them feel like an independent entity? The question can only be answered when you go through its history and politics at the same time. In the 16,000s, the island of Taiwan that we commonly know today was called Ilha Formosa. The island of Formosa was originally established as a trading post and was later partially colonized by the Dutch, after they kicked out the Spanish in 1642. In 1636, the Dutch East India Company launched a series of punitive campaigns to retaliate against the Aborigines and kill around 300 people. This incident was otherwise known as the Lei Mi Island Massacre, which was indeed quite brutal. The Dutch commercial model on Formosa also later attracted mirror Chinese migrants, mostly the Han people and some other southern Chinese ethnicities. In the mid-16,000s, the internal instability in mainland China during the Qing-Ming transition led to the explosion in the number of refugees to Formosa. This event furthermore instigated an uprising led by the Chinese migrants at the Zealandia fort. The immediate collapse of the Ming dynasty made Formosa become an ideal base for their army to recover their losses. General Zhang Zhenggong then besieged the Dutch and seized control of the island in 1662. Basically, Zhang's goal was to use Formosa as a base to retake the mainland in the far future. Well, doesn't that sound so familiar in it? Nevertheless, his goal ultimately failed when the Qing dynasty exploited the famine on the island in 1683 and forcefully cracked down all the remnants of the Mings. The conquest sporadically raised the question whether to keep the island or not, since the Qing saw no benefits in integrating Formosa. The Qing administration finally concluded to annex the island and integrate Formosa as a prefecture of the Fujian province under the new name, Taiwan. Throughout 5 decades, Qing's rule on Taiwan was poorly managed, as those sent out officials and governors were basically practicing institutional corruption. Raids and rebellions intermittently happened now and then, which gave the Qing not so much of a good impression over the island. In 1884, the Keelung campaign showed a major weakness of the Qing's administration on the island. A highly corrupted backwater Taiwan forced them to change their model and modernize the place. Subsequent impositions aimed to flourish Taiwan, especially in those sectors like trading and exporting. In addition to that, Taiwan was officially titled as a province of the Qing dynasty. During these years of revamping, the transparent merits of Taiwan successfully attract many scholars and migrants to the island. The Qing's rule continued over Taiwan until 1895, when they were plunged into a brutal war with Japan. The war was also a series known as the Century of Humiliation, which was a century of foreign powers meddling and exploiting China's domestic affairs. The Japanese Empire later emerged victorious from the First Sino-Japanese War. Thereby, the Qing was forced to accept all the coercive demands from the Japanese. The treaty was otherwise called Shimonosake, requiring the Chinese to yield Taiwan as well as the Pescadores Islands and the Liaodong Peninsula. Yet, many Taiwanese were also against the imperial rule. They even managed to form the first Republic of Formosa during the secession of Taiwan, and it was considered one of the first republics ever made in Asia. Undoubtedly, the idea of democracy and a republic government surely has somewhat shaped the earlier identity of the Taiwanese people. But the newly formed government died out after a single year when the Japanese decided to wipe them out in 1895. Taiwan again continued to live under Japanese occupation for over 5 decades. Despite that, Taiwan was modernized by the Japanese. Systematic infrastructure, railroads, and factories were installed on the island. Taiwan basically became a site for the Japanese to test their new advanced technologies. Nevertheless, the people were always up for assimilation. Propagandas were mass-produced to marginalize the Taiwanese language and culture. Taiwanese who speak their language were often given a reproachful look from the colonial master or even violently punished for doing so. In the early 1940s, China was embroiled in a civil war. Two largest political parties on mainland China were the Communists and the Nationalists, aka the Kuomintang. Despite getting shielded from these atrocious events in the mainland, Taiwanese men were obliged to enlist into the imperial army. All the females were either kidnapped or deceived to serve as what the Japanese grotesquely referred to as quote-unquote comfort women. These actions caused further dissent and anger toward Japanese rule. The Taiwanese, having been repeatedly ruled by foreign aggressors for over centuries, now look forward to reuniting with their mainland brothers. The end of World War II ultimately brought Taiwan back to the Republic of China. The advent of Chinese was fervently welcomed by many Taiwanese. They saw the reintegration as family reunion, since the Republic of China was somewhat spoken democratically in the constitution. Here, it adheres to the three principles of the people: nationalism, democracy, and socialism. But expectations were not met. 4 years of ruling over Taiwan by the nationalists was brutal. Taiwan was politically neglected and seen as Japanese supported by the Kuomintang. The Taiwanese economy plummeted and lots of Taiwanese officials were expelled from their positions. In this time, nationalist China implemented various policies to demolish the quote-unquote slavery mindset imposed by the Japanese. The people of the island went on being ruthlessly Sinicized for almost another century. By 1949, the neglected and mistreated island became a refuge for the Kuomintang remnants. The retreat of the nationalists also marked the beginning of a 38 consecutive year-long martial law in Taiwan. Freedom of press and freedom of speech were prohibited. Anyone who criticized and opposed the regime was executed, tortured, and severely punished. Previously in 1948, the Kuomintang passed a law called this, which I'm not gonna say, it's way too long. Basically, all political parties other than the KMT were illegalized, effectively making Taiwan become a one-party state. Subsequent Sinicization policies crumbled the feeble hopes of the Taiwanese people. The government refused to speak Taiwanese and forced everyone to use Mandarin. Children were taught that they are Chinese descendants, and their final goal was to retake mainland China. Anyone who fell behind these requirements were publicly humiliated and poorly treated. All forms of media were heavily censored and strictly controlled by the central government. TV shows often portray non-Mandarin speakers as monstrous villains and vice versa. As a result, resentment against the repression of the KMT culminated on February 28, 1979, which was known as the 228 incident. Activists of the Tang Wai Party, or literally means outside party, were accused of being affiliated with the communists. The event took away roughly around 20,000 lives of Taiwanese protesters and annihilated the democracy in Taiwan. This series of events was known as the White Terror, and it lasted for over 40 years. The year of 1979 was also a major challenge for the Kuomintang. After the United States severed ties with the ROC, the convictions against the KMT rapidly deepened. Taiwan was isolated, and the People's Republic of China has displayed them in international affairs. For the Kuomintang, they see things needed to change. Though having controlled almost all aspects of the Taiwanese life and the government, Chiang Ching-kuo started to loosen his rule over the media and politics. He later inducted Lee Teng-hui to assume his office, who was the first Han-born Chinese in Taiwan to serve in a such high-ranking position. Regardless of all the brutal facts about the KMT, they did manage to govern Taiwan economically and lay a solid foundation for the prosperity it has today. In 1987, martial law was lifted, and Taiwan officially underwent the process of democratization. Lee then implemented various democratic acts and policies to loosen his control in all facets of the regime. Many of his decisions focused on creating an identity for Taiwan and largely cutting off the quote-unquote Chinese identity. In 1996, the DPP, aka the Democratic Progressive Party, was legalized on the island, and Taiwan's first ever free elections was held. In 2000, Chang Shui-bian won as the first non-KMT president of the Republic of China. Just like that, both sides rotated in and out of the office for the next 2 decades until Lai Ching-te won the presidential election in 2024. Speaking from the Taiwanese perspective, they see themselves as having gotten out from a long cycle of being oppressed by foreign rulers. They saw their voice has been repressed for a century. Until now, they are free. They are proud of their system and see no point in reintegrating back to China, at least for now. They remember the national security law passed by the People's Republic of China to undermine the democracy process in Hong Kong. As of right now, Taiwanese seeing themselves as exclusively Taiwanese has been on a linear increase. From the mainlanders' perspective, Taiwan is an island that was taken away in their moment of weakness. They regard Taiwan as an inseparable part of China and see themselves as having the legitimate power to exercise their authority over the island. Cross-strait relations nowadays are still pretty tense between both sides. One side of Taiwan, called the Pan-Blue Coalition, sought for a friendly exchange with China and the maintenance of the status quo. On the other side, we have the Pan-Green Coalition that moves towards independence and a full recognition of a sovereign Taiwanese state. But that doesn't mean that things will be
但
peaceful.
绝不承诺放弃使用武力，保留采取一切必要措施的选项。
Since for the CCP and C, they believe that Taiwanese people are included in their Great Rejuvenation Plan, aka the Chinese Dream, the prospect of war is likely, as Xi Jinping might want to take action before the second centenary. But for now, Beijing will continue to pursue peaceful means with Taiwan to achieve reunification.
我们坚持以最大诚意，尽最大努力，争取和平统一的前景。
Well, that's it for today. I hope this helps, and I will see you in the next video.